My name is Nathan Burgett.
And I'm Tori Thompson. So lighting is one of the most critical elements to every video. It drives the emotion and the tone.
Finding the right lighting that gives you the correct mood for your video can be difficult. So in this video, we are going to examine the different key light positions and diffusion selections for any professional interview setup and describe the scenarios and emotions of each setup.
So the fundamentals for lighting a professional interview setup can teach you how to light any scene and prepare you for working in the film industry.
So for this lighting study, we will set up 5 different key light positions that will move around our subject like a clock. This is the recreation of Shane Hurlbut's Illumination experience class. Now, our aim is to expand and discuss the different lighting angles, shadows, and diffusion in each setup.
So to get started, let's break down our equipment. Our key light will be a book light, starting with an Aperture Lightstorm C300D, shining at a circular white bounce, that is then diffused by either half frost diffusion or half grid diffusion.
Right above our camera is our fill light, which is an Aperture 120D shining straight into our bounce. Our camera will be the C200 with a Sigma 50mm, which is placed directly in front of our subject.
The camera and the fill light will be remaining stationary for the whole video as our constants, with the key light as our variable.
Alright, so we are at the side lighting. Something to note is that the fill light remains off until the key light is placed in the right position so that we can get the key light exactly where we want it to be, then add the fill. And then another reason, or another thing to note, is our fill light is right above the camera. Now the reason why we're doing this is that it doesn't create an extra shadow on the face, because if we place the fill on the opposite side, it could create another shadow, and in this tutorial we really want it to make the key light feel like one continuous light, and so that's why we place the fill light right above the camera. So Tori, we are on the side light. This is at 3 o'clock on the clock, and let's just talk about what we kind of like about it. When would we use it? What are your basic impressions of the side light?
Yeah, so I find it very interesting when you see like this side by side with the two diffusions next to each other. They're very different. I was a little bit shocked to like kind of see that. So the one with the
Half frost.
So the one with the half frost is a lot more serious tone, a lot more shadows going on her face, a lot brighter on the other side. Whereas the half grid smooths it out a lot. The lighting's a little bit more even, but it's still. You still have that dark shadow on the side because the key light is just on the side of her face.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think the ratios between the light side and the dark side seem very apparent on the half frost, and I think it really. I think what really sticks out is that the half grid, like you were saying, kind of smooths out the light to the dark really well, and so it doesn't jump as much. And so I think if I was shooting a interview and we were really trying to make it dramatic and we're shooting from the side light, I almost would always use the half grid to kind of smooth it out and not make it as apparent. But I think if I was shooting a short film and we were really trying to like create a harsh light on the face and trying to make a very dramatic scene, I think that's when I would use the half frost in that scenario. What do you think about that?
I agree. I think also you don't see this setup for interviews very often. I think usually it'll be not at 3 o'clock. You don't usually use the side light for most just interview setups, unless there's like a real purpose for it. If it's a very dramatic subject or topic, you know, that you're interviewing that subject for.
Where I feel like I've seen side light used a lot. A lot of times it's in short films and narrative-based films. I think the only times I've seen it more with someone talking straight at the camera would be like a poem reciting or spoken word or something where the topic and the art form is very dramatic, is usually when I would see it.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's really good to be aware of that too, because I think, you know, when you're first going to film somebody, just film an interview, which I've done, I think, before in the past, you know, you're just starting out, you're not really sure where to put that key light, but you know it needs to light their face. I think I've had interviews where they cast a lot of shadows, which didn't really match the tone I was going for, or other times, which we'll see more towards the end, when it gets closer at the 6 o'clock angle, it's like too bright. It's just too much light. So it's important to like kind of find that happy medium with the tone that you're going for. So position 2, this is the Wedge or the Rembrandt. So this is at 4:30 o'clock on our little clock motion. So this position was definitely one of our hardest to find. I think it took us about 30 minutes to really find that.
Maybe not 30.
It took us a little while to like find that wedge. So,
Yeah.
and I think too, all faces are different. So it's really just finding what works with your subject. But basically, if you look under her eye where the shadow is, you're trying to find a triangle right there, where it's not too much light is spilling onto the other side of her face, but just enough where there's a little bit of highlight there. And then as you can see between the two different diffusions we had, they also look very different.
Yeah, I think one thing to really like note is that the creating that wedge comes from the nose and the shadow that's cast from the nose, and so it's gonna change per person what exact angle you're at. It might not be exactly at 4:30, but 4:30 is probably a good place to start, and then adjusting it. Another thing to note is that if the actor or actress moves their face, it can sometimes change where the shadow falls on it. And so it is a harder light to find, but definitely one that I think you see in a bunch of interviews, and you see it a bunch in films. It's a very, I think, it accents the face really well. It keeps it kind of keeps a good amount of emotion, because you still have some shadow, some contrast within your whole image of the face, but it still is quite flattering, I think.
Yeah, I definitely like this one a lot as well. I think, like you were just saying, Nate, it has still that shadow and that emotion. If I think you would also use this for more of a serious kind of interview or serious topic. I couldn't picture her talking about something very, very happy if you think about it, but something like a little more serious. But it's also it accentuates her face, and I think with the different diffusions, I know, Nate, we were commenting on this as we were reviewing it, but it changes her shape face too. With the more shadow, it's like kind of slims her face out a little bit, and then the other diffusion where it flattens the light, kind of spreads it out. There's a little less shadow.
The half grid.
It really just softens like the whole face all around.
Yeah, I mean it's almost like when we use the half grid, you don't see the triangle as much. It's there, but it's very smoothed out, and it's almost to the point where like it kind of takes out a lot of the contrast. Where like they could be talking about a happy subject, you know, with the half grid in, but with the half frost, it's like no, this is serious. This is a real interview about something gritty. Yeah. So I think this Rembrandt or the wedge position is probably one of the most talked about lighting positions that everyone always brings up in their film classes. So there it is. All right, we're moving into the nose shadow, and this is around 4:35-ish. So this one is just, it's a hair over from the Rembrandt. And so this is just, the light's just moving a little bit over so the nose isn't creating as much shadow on the other side of the face, but it's coming in a little bit. So the big characteristic of this is that there's a little bit of shadow underneath the nose and underneath the chin that we have. And so we still have some shadow on the face, but not as much as the Rembrandt.
So yeah, so the nose shadow, we're gonna put up the comparison with the second position and the third position because they are similar. So just look at the differences. They are different. Nate, I guess what would you say you would use? Like, when would you use the nose shadow versus the Rembrandt?
Oh, that's a tough question. I think if I was shooting a short film or something that is a little bit more artistic and there's a little bit more passion from the speaker or the narrative film, I'd probably always lean toward the Rembrandt, and I'd probably use more often than not a half frost so that we can see the differences in shadow in it. If I was shooting more of a normal interview on an owner or someone who's at a corporate business or anything like that, I most often lead toward the nose shadow, probably using the half grid so that there would be really just not too much shadow, not make it too dramatic, but keep it very smoothed out. That'd be my probably my suggestion there.
Yeah. I definitely think this third position is great because it's not flattening out any of the shadows. You still see them. You know, there's the shadow on the nose is a lot. You still have a lot of shadow on the side of the face and the chin, and that can be key for like really getting that shape of the face right.
Yeah, I think with this one you're still getting a pretty strong shadow on the right side of the face from the half grid and the half frost. It's still like it's making the right side of her face much more like a hard line that comes down and shapes the face even more. It's interesting. I like it.
Okay, so our next position, the fourth position, is the drop shadow. This is around 5:30 on our clock coming around. So this key light has a good shadow on one side of the chin. So there's a lot less shadow on the side of the face like the other two, but it really accentuates the shadow that's going around on the chin there.
Yeah, I think this one is kind of like your stereotypical interview light. It adds a little bit of shadow on the chin, kind of shapes it a little bit more, kind of like from up here near the ear coming down to the chin. And you still have shadow on both sides, and so it's still giving you some good angles, good shaping of the face. Almost can never go wrong with any kind of shape of any person's face. Just creating nice beauty lines, I would say.
Yeah, I think between the drop shadow and the nose shadow, those have been, I think, my sweet spots for like finding a great key light on a person's face. And I think even like when you're on a set and you're trying to find that light that you want, the perfect lighting, I think it depends on your person, it depends on the location, it depends on your. There's a lot of other variable factors, but I think those drop and nose can be the best for professional lighting, like corporate or stuff like that.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. Which one? So for this one, it's quite interesting. I really like the glow on the face that you get from the half frost more than the half grid. I feel like with the half grid we're losing kind of the what is it, like kind of the brightness and the shape of the face. Like it kind of flattens it too much in this position. What are your thoughts on that? Do you kind of agree with that?
I agree. I definitely think I agree. I think because I think the half grid worked a lot better when there were harsher shadows. Yeah. Because it's still, you had those shadows there, but it smoothed it out. I think with this one, where with the half frost, there's the shadows are slight, but they pull out the face in a way, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. It feels like it's coming out.
Yeah.
Because you're seeing more of that, the shadows around the chin and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot.
Also, with this position, we added a backlight. We did this
Oh, yeah.
because it separated our subject from the background. When the light was on the side, we didn't really need it, but as we came closer to the front, we didn't want our subject to kind of blend into the background because we didn't have a backlight. So we added it at this 5:30ish position because of that. That was a little change, but...
All right, we have made it around the clock. We're at 6 o'clock, also known as the fashion angle, where you'd see in your typical magazine or cosmetic beauty look, the light is right above the face, so it flattens any shadows, but you still have that nice shadow around the chin and just accents the beauty of the face. So that's this one. For this, kind of like with the the drop shadow, the fashion angle to me looks best with the half frost because it's still showing some of the shadows and it's not flattening everything out. It's kind of my opinion on this.
I think I would have to say this was my least favorite place to put the key light. I think when I was first setting up some interviews, I've probably done this by mistake because I feel like there's no shadow on the face, there's no shape of the face, it's just under the chin a little bit, but I couldn't see myself using this for any like really professional lighting setup unless there's a purpose for it.
Yeah, we shot a film for First Hand Supply. They do a lot of pomades for the hair and also shampoos and stuff. And so it's beauty, it's fashion. And for that, we didn't use a fashion angle. We used a drop shadow for that because I felt like it accented the face a little bit more, and just having that extra shadow underneath the chin and on the side of the face, it worked better. And so I think I lean toward that more often than the fashion angle, putting exactly at 6 o'clock.
Alright, so our sixth position, we decided to move the key light onto the other side of the clock at 7:30, about 7:30. And this gave us actually a better Rembrandt than when we were on the other side. And with this kind of testing the other side, we noticed that we think like some subjects' faces are different depending on which side of you put the key light. And I think it's important to test those out on a shoot, depending on the person's face, shape, and shadows of their nose. We thought with our subject, if we were to shoot with her, I think we would have put our key light on that side actually.
Yeah. It is strange, just like you put the light on the other side and they look like a different person sometimes. And some light just falls better. And in this case, for her, when we put it on the other side, it looked better. The Rembrandt just kind of clicked for this. So I think it's important to, if you're shooting, if you're filming someone, a corporate interview or anything like that, look at their photos, look at any headshots they've done before, see where the light's shining from, and just see what looks best on them. I think it's really important just to find the right side of the light that works best for them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think, honestly, with the half grid and the half frost, I like both of them a lot on this side.
Actually, yeah.
I think the half grid does smooth it out a lot, but I think I would still even use that. It's just for like a more upbeat, I think, type of tone. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think to note is that with the half grid and the Rembrandt position, like it could almost look like it could be a drop shadow or a nose shadow with a half frost grid because of how much it smooths the shadow. It just kind of shows you that like diffusion can just change a whole look, even if the light position is completely different. Kind of interesting to just note that and have control of it on your shoot, you know. You've reached our bonus round. We're going to start talking about how we've seen lighting used on real film sets and talk about our work experience and such. So Tori, we've talked a lot about lighting, a lot of theoretical stuff, a lot of tutorial based, but now we're going to break into how we've seen lighting used on real film sets and in real interviews, professional grade stuff. So I'll start off with you.
Okay, cool. So I'll say I've been on a few bigger sets like HBO. I've been on a few interview setups, CBS, ESPN. We did a little bit. My uncle works in New York City, so I've been able to go out there and kind of work with him as a PA and an AC. And it's really cool being on like an actual professional lighting lit setup. I think you'd be surprised of how much time they actually put into lighting an interview setup. The gaffers would take care of all the lighting. So my uncle, he's the director of photography, so he takes care of the look, what he sees behind the camera. And he would be the one being like, okay, we need more light here, we need more light here, we need more light here. And we had, really big rigs going on. There was one scene we were in a basement set. It was like supposed to be a basement. And really beautiful like kitchen set of like an olden times kitchen in the basement of a house. And it's all in a studio. So our gaffers, my uncle, he wanted light coming in through the window. And so he had to set up a rig with like a huge lighting setup outside of the house, bringing the light in to create these really cool shadows. If I have a picture, I'll put it up there. But so lighting is huge, I think, with professional lighting setups. And I think directors and people who really do this professionally in the field put a lot of time and energy into thinking of how the light should be, the background, like any lighting behind the subject, how the subject is lit. I think a lot of time goes into it. And so I think learning that now, like while you're kind of in the beginning stages of learning filmmaking, can really set you up for anywhere you want to go in the industry.
On those, so we learned a lot of concepts of lighting the face, and we're focusing on just the key light. Did you, on your film sets, did you kind of see that like there's some concepts we've talked about used on those sets?
Yeah, I think I would have to say most of the key lights that were set up on those interview styles were at around the 430, 530, between the no shadow and the drop shadow. So the sets I was on, it was actually after they filmed the show, and it was of the cast just talking about their experience with shooting with them. So it was very just kind of footage that would be used, for like behind the scenes, after credit type videos.
Nice.
So that's a little bit about like what I've done in New York with lighting. Definitely take the time you can now to learn about it and just know how it works. Nate, do you have anything you want to add? Any work experience you've seen professionally?
So I think has it been a couple years? I don't know. I was on a film set in San Francisco, PAing on set, and a lot of the concepts of just focusing, kind of a lot like how they usually work is that you kind of light with sections, and so you focus on maybe the background light first, and then the key light happens on the actors' faces. And so for this one, it was an interior set, and people were sitting around a dinner table, and the director of photography, he would light the background, so we kind of shine light through the windows. That would either be daylight or it could be a moonlight scene, and then he'd set up rigs around the room where he'd light each face, and so that'd be like the key light that is lighting all the faces and stuff, and it'd be separate from the light that'd be touching on, say, on the walls or on the background. And so he's very much kind of separating the light and keeping it right on the face, right on the subject, and then flagging it off and then creating room tone light to light up the room that's different from the key light, and then he had the background light coming through the windows, and so there's clear separations between how he kind of shaped the light and stuff.
Yeah.
That's where I've seen it used a lot.
That's a great point. I think I've also noticed that a lot of flagging, with the key light that's actually lighting your subject versus whatever you're seeing in the background. And I think a lot of like directors of photography have a great eye and a great vision for what the background should look like. And I think light can like play a huge role in that and like what it looks like. And
Definitely.
then lighting the actual subject. It's different, but it's still important.
Yeah. Any other work experience or anything you want to note on in the professional world of film and film and lighting?
I think actually I do want to add, there was a shoot I was doing with NBC. We were shooting a documentary interviews for a famous guy. I don't know.
Not famous enough for Tori to remember.
Wait, time out.
Who's the guy? Tori?
Okay. So
Who's the
famous famous hockey announcer Doc Emmerich. He recently retired for announcing hockey, and we were filming a documentary series with him with some of his colleagues that he's worked with. And one of the coolest things I think for the lighting setup, just for those basic interview styles, is the background was very dark, and they had TVs kind of like that lit up with some reels of just hockey going on,
Cool.
and then they shined some like really bright, I think they were like bluish lights towards the camera, and you could see them like in the background with the spotlight, and it reminded me of like sports. And I think thinking about the topic that you are filming is so important to like change the lighting with that. Like I think sports very spotlighty, very like direct, and I think my uncle, who's the director of photography, was able to like pull that off with just by shining like some smaller bright lights towards the camera in the background. It made a really cool like just kind of spotlight.
Yeah. So he was using TVs as a backlight?
And TVs as a backlight, yeah.
Wow. And so was he playing like reels on it, or like was it like anything auto playing or anything?
I think it was auto playing, yeah. I think it was one big screen with a reel playing, and then I think on the side there were stills.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
It was a cool room. Yeah. Do you have any more experiences you want to talk about? Work-wise, lighting? There's a lot.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
I mean, I think it all comes down to like really it is the separation of light. There is this one absurd film that I was I was PAing on. It was in LA, and the main subjects were live animals, and there's this one scene between the two dogs who are like have a romantic relationship, and they're in this barn, and to recreate like it's supposed to be a moonlight scene, and so to recreate everything they use just one giant key light on them, and so they're in the barn, and through the windows they just create like this giant soft box. Okay, like it was bigger than the whole barn itself, and they shined light straight into that diffusion, and it created this like nice soft light for the moonlight that was on the whole scene. And I think for that one, I don't even know if they used any backlight for it. I think because it was moonlight, and it just comes because the moonlight is just your main source. You only need one light source for that, and I think that was it. That's all they needed.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's really cool.
Yeah. I don't know if they used any more light, but I just remember they said it was just giant key light. Yeah.
I think it's interesting looking at all these different scenarios because lighting can change so much in a shot, and I think it's important to like be able to change that lighting and see different things in the lighting. I think I would suggest like now, like wherever you're at with your filmmaking, like keep learning how to light different scenes, watch some YouTube videos, and just get on sets if you can, and just really notice how these directors and filmmakers light certain scenes.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing I feel like I've learned in the couple of years of filmmaking is just you like I think the big thing to focus on was like, oh, what type of diffusion can I use? What's a bigger light I can use or something like that. And when I realize more often than not, it's a light position. It's also controlling the light is the biggest thing. And I think like the image completely changes when you take a big key light and you just flag off a side of the key light, and then it's not spilling onto the background. And then you light the background separately. And just the difference of contrast and depth you see in the scene when you're shaping the light, creating two different light sources for each. It makes a whole difference.